Hi, if you're trying to follow what's going on with the Russia collusion hoax story, I'm going to do something that should help you tremendously. And I just ask you to follow me every day. I'm going to give just daily little updates, but I'm also doing a podcast on YouTube in which I describe more in detail what goes on with this Russia collusion hoax and what has happened in the past. You know, I started following this story in 2016 because I was torn. At that time, I was a registered Democrat, but I was not pleased with Hillary Clinton. I kept seeing all of these stories about her. And as a researcher, I started looking into it when everyone was saying that she had created this dossier or a resume on President Donald Trump in which she claimed that he had an unusual relationship with Russia to try to influence the 2016 elections. Now, because of my research with that, I really tried to keep up with what was going on with Hillary Clinton. Therefore, I had documents back from 2016 when I first started this. And so what I want to do with you is to give you information, because a lot of times, if you're looking at the news, they'll start mentioning things and you're like, what are they talking about? I'm going to start here. This is part 1 of my series on the Russia collusion hoax. And I want you to know the whole thing started with, at that time in 2016, presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. And if you would like to know what she did, please, as I said, follow me on YouTube so that you can get the entire information. But I'd like to just start here. She got her, at that time, her legal firm, which was Perkins Coie, and they then hired someone to write a dossier on President Donald Trump. The company that they used was Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS then hired this man, Christopher Steele. And I'm sure you're saying, you know, I keep hearing this about Steele. Who is Steele? Why did they call it the Steele dossier? They call it the Steele dossier because the person that wrote it, his name was Christopher Steele. And he's the person that was getting information. Then, in the meantime, they hired other people to give them information. And that's what I will continue on my podcast. But just to let you know, this whole thing started when candidate Hillary Clinton in 2016 paid someone to write a dossier about Donald Trump, knowing at the time that all of this was not real, that it was all fabricated. But the purpose of it was to discredit then presidential candidate Donald Trump. And the way she was going to do it is to say that he was working with Russia in rigging the 2016 election. That's how it started. Now, to continue with this information about Hillary Clinton, what she did at this time, they hired this person called Igor Danchenko. And what he was doing was feeding information to Christopher Steele, information that he knew and that other people knew the information was incorrect. And under the auspices of Fusion GPS, they tried to assemble what they call opposition research. And it was used by allies to the Clinton campaign in the media with the FBI. And they took this information from Danchenko and another person named Dolan to fabricate claims that Donald Trump was working with Russia. Now, at this time, everyone knew that the information that everyone was using was fabricated. And this is the thing that makes it so difficult. And this is why Tulsi Gabbard has now released information and why we have the Department of Justice that has now just created a strike force in order to investigate this whole thing. Because now that they are putting all of the pieces together, it is apparent that the entire thing started with the 2016 election, and it started with Hillary Clinton running for president. And then once they found out that Donald Trump really won the presidency, they could not stop there. The information was then given to President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden, and everyone knew that it was not correct. And I will, in part 2, I'd like to give you more information on how our Department of Justice, including our Director of National Security, National Intelligence, our Director of the FBI and Director of the CIA all worked on this document that all of them knew at this time was all fabricated. Anyway, stay tuned to part 2.